I'm Jane.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chad.
I am the product manager on developer experience at SDF. And Chad, tell us about yourself.
I am founder and CEO of AHA Labs. We built the Stellar CLI, like the way that you interact with smart contracts on Sorbonne. That was all us. And the NPM libraries for each smart contract that you can generate with the CLI was also us.
That's really
What
awesome.
else do you want to know?
That's really awesome. Great street cred. So you may not know this, but Chad and I go way back. We actually worked at a different layer one protocol called Near protocol. And Chad, which team were you working on at Near?
I was on DevX. Which one were you on?
I was on protocol and then wallets. So gotcha. Tell me, what is the most interesting or the feature that you're most proud of building at Near way back?
The thing I'm most proud of is the stuff that I built after they fired me. Actually, and the thing leading right up to them firing me. It was the thing that Willem, who co-founded AHA Labs with me, the thing that we were working on in like late 2021 was a testing framework for Near called Near Workspaces. And it would start up multiple local blockchains in the background and run Near tests in parallel. You could also like set a flag and it would run them on testnet instead. It was very slick. Other blockchain ecosystems do not have anything comparable. Yeah, and then the stuff that we built afterward was like a little, Near didn't have ABIs or like contract specs. There was no way to, even coding against your own smart contracts was very painful, let alone coding against someone else's. So we built an ABI system in parallel to their own team doing it, because at this point we were like getting paid via grants from Near Foundation and we no longer worked at Near Inc. But we built our own ABI system, and then we built tooling that like pulled in that ABI and gave you a form in your browser so you could interact with any smart contract that was on chain. So we started with a piece of the tooling that we haven't even gotten to in Stellar yet, right? Like we've built great CLIs and NPM library, fully typed NPM libraries, all using the same concept. And soon we will get to the part where you can interact with the contract from the browser.
Yes, I will say watching you and Willem's work on the ABI for Near, that was very impressive. It definitely is a bright spot on the map. So yeah, I think you earned a lot of street cred with that. And now talking about Stellar, we actually very intelligently have contract spec, unlike Near. So that makes development life easier, which is a great protocol design decision.
Can I say more about that?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, this is something that I've loved about Stellar smart contract platform, that from day one, every contract spec, every ABI is on chain, which means that tooling can use it and know it's going to be there. And you can do stuff like generate an NPM library for any contract that's deployed on chain, or have a CLI that's like an implicit CLI so that you're fetching the contract spec on the fly and building out this whole part of the invoke command that comes after the dash dash. So it feels like using npm run dash dash or cargo run dash dash. It's like a really powerful, it's like a, I don't know, like a step level unlock thing where you can build way better developer experiences because Stellar made that decision than you ever could on a blockchain that doesn't have that.
Yes, 100%. And we're so happy to be here at Stellar. So let's talk. Let's talk about building in Web3. I think there are a lot of challenges facing developers in Web3. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about those, and maybe I can add some to that as well.
Sure. The way I'll frame this is I've been curious. I started out my career in Ruby on Rails in 2010, and then like eventually worked at a consultancy that used Ruby without Rails and was like too cool for Rails, right? It was like Rails makes a lot of bad architectural decisions. We can do it better. And right, that was kind of the idea. Ruby on Rails is convention over configuration. If you know how you want to configure everything, maybe it's not the right choice, but it's interesting that you could have sort of this prime stack where it's like most web apps need these things. I've been curious since 2017, since starting to learn about the decentralized web and smart contracts and decentralized storage, right? Things like IPFS. What is sort of the prime stack of the decentralized web, right? Like, which pieces do you need? What is this emerging architecture?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're all still kind of playing with it and figuring out, how do we even build apps in this way?
Yeah.
I started working full-time in blockchain in 2019, and at the time indexers did not exist, but everyone was like re-implementing indexing themselves. The project that I worked on, Aragon, was doing it all in your browser.
Wow.
Yeah, so it would, like, the first time that you loaded an app, it would build up this whole index, and you would like see stuff flash and then disappear, and then it was like the whole UI was like playing through the entire history of what happened on chain.
That's amazing.
Ridiculous. So we figured out some pieces, right? Like, you need an indexer, like the stack is starting to come together, but I think there's still a lot of, it's all very new. If you want to use an LLM to tell you how to build your thing, there's not enough examples of building things well for the LLMs to even pull from.
Yeah,
so sure. That to me is why it's particularly difficult.
Yes, and I think you're speaking from the perspective of being a very experienced developer in Web3. And then, there's also those folks who are coming from Web2, and this is all new for them. So even to think about, okay, how do I get a wallet? How do I do key management? Do I need to learn how to use the CLI and then deploy a contract, write the contract, deploy the contract, and then have a front end that talks to the contract? It just seems so overwhelming. By the time that the developer learns all the tools and actually create an app, maybe like 90% of them have already dropped off. So I think maybe there needs to be like a delightful moment in the beginning, make it super easy for developer to get started. Let's say
aha moment.
Yes, could be an aha moment in which they are, boom, can create a local network and then deploy a contract and then have a UI that interacts with the contract just like that. So I think that will keep them, and maybe then they can slowly learn the toolings and move off, this existing framework. So that kind of gets into Scaffold Stellar. So we're here to talk about
Good intro.
So Scaffold Stellar is this tool that we would like to bring to our ecosystem, and we'd like to really help developers onboard quickly, be able to build really efficiently, and maybe in some instances even help institutions to sort of bring their ideas to fruition very, very quickly. Now, the inspiration for Scaffold Stellar is really just sitting at a hackathon in the Ethereum world and working through something called a Scaffold ETH. It was amazing how quickly I was able to get an application up and going. And that moment was an aha moment. And I think we need something very similar in our ecosystem too. We have all the parts. We have the quick start, a local node. We have the CLI, the JS SDK. We even have some front end examples. We're working with Open Zeppelin for more contract standards. So we kind of have all the ingredients. So it's about bringing it together and give our developers that delightful moment in the beginning of their development and learning on Stellar. So shall we talk about Scaffold Stellar and how it compares to Ruby on Rails? Chad.
Sure, yeah. So AHA Labs is working on the Scaffold Stellar implementation. You heard my background with Ruby on Rails a little bit ago. So for more context, Scaffold ETH is not, in my mind, particularly similar to Ruby on Rails, right? And like, I think it's a difference in focus, where Scaffold ETH is focused on helping you learn about Ethereum, but it's not meant to be used as your starting point for building an app. Ruby on Rails was meant to be a starting point for building many kinds of apps. So it's trying to strike this balance between minimal enough, but also very powerful.
Yes.
Whereas Scaffold ETH is like not that focused on being powerful. It's just focused on being like comprehensible. By the way, how's the background noise? Is it awful?
It's all
It's
good.
okay. Okay, as long as I'm talking, you can't hear the siren. It's okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I think what I would like for Scaffold Stellar is to be a little bit more like Ruby on Rails. And I know that's scary because like lots of people have lots of opinions on Ruby on Rails, but by that I mean that it's more focused on a starting point for apps, right? It's not just a learning tool. It's also a tool for like ideally people would use it to start their apps. If you want to like eject from it and configure things more than it allows you to, maybe we have a way to do that. But in my ideal version of how this plays out, when people start building Stellar apps, they use Scaffold Stellar and they don't have to like throw it away and start over at any point. They can just customize it to their liking as they go.
Yeah, I think that is a great perspective and also a very ambitious plan. I think from my background, learning about Ruby on Rails, I think back in maybe it's around 2012, I want to say. I think there's a lot of, for a while it's very popular, but at the same time, as you mentioned, it's very rigid, it's very difficult to configure, and there's always that limitation of a trade-off between how easy it is to use versus how opinionated that framework is. And I think for a while, I think I did a little bit open source contribution for the Ruby on Rails, and I got into a Ruby file, and at the very end, there's just a one line in Japanese. That's all the notes that was available. So it was definitely
that was the
difficult.
only comments in this Ruby gem.
Only comment. So it's very difficult to configure. If you want to do anything that's custom, that's outside what's provided for you, it's extremely challenging. So the Ruby on Rails, but the trade-off is, of course, it's very easy to get started. And so,
well, and it works for a lot of apps. That's the other thing, right? Like anything that's sort of for Ruby on Rails, it was like if you're doing basic CRUD stuff, create, read, update, destroy, and that's a lot of web apps, right? So it was like as long as you're doing stuff that fits within that framework and you're okay with the architectural pattern pushed on you by Rails, which the consultancy I worked at in 2015 or whatever it was wasn't, right? Like we wanted to do things a different way and we didn't like some of the choices that Rails made. And there was no way to like, when you say Rails isn't customizable, it sort of is. You can install all these extensions and you can, right? It's like extensible within, as long as you're still doing things the Rails way. But if you want to totally break with some of those patterns, then you've got to go outside of it. So like, is that the future of Scaffold Stellar? Or is it something like we're going to start somewhere much simpler than any of that?
It's going to be seen. So we can start with helping the new developer on board, and then we can see how far we can extend this. Maybe it's something that it will meet 80% use case and 20% use cases where the developer decides that they want a complete customizable stack, they'll move off. But the goal is, I think having dual purpose of helping developer on board and also use it for the majority use case is a great goal to have. So hopefully you learned a little bit about Scaffold Stellar. Folks, the folks who are behind the Stellar CLI for March of 2024 are the folks who are going to build it out for us. And Chad, tell us, when can we get our hands on this awesome Scaffold Stellar tool?
We actually, so we're working hard on the first couple milestones, and those should be ready to go. I don't know, by the end of the month. I'll like guarantee it to you by the end of May 2025. You will be able to use an early version of Scaffold Stellar. The full roadmap takes us to August or early September, depending on how you count. So before Meridian this year, the full what we scoped for this original project is going to be done. So that's going to include things like that contract explorer I was talking about that we built on Near. We're going to have something similar built into Scaffold Stellar. and I don't even remember what all the future I'm so like in milestones 1 and 2 now that I forget what all the other milestones are. We have a project board
Yes,
on GitHub, so
sure,
if you want to find it,
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you want to,
github.com/aha labs, go to our projects, you'll see it.
right.
And if you go to the milestones view, I think it's called the milestones view, priority board, that's what it's called. Priority board, you can see all of those are organized by milestone. So anyway, would love for people to try it out. Before we get to all of that, would love feedback on this early version of it. It's going to be like a basic front end and like some tooling to pipe your contracts into that front end. That's kind of where we're starting, and you'll be able to play with that in just a couple weeks here.
That's super exciting. I cannot wait. And guys, you heard here first. In the future, if you want a Stellar conference, you can get your hands on Scaffold Stellar workshop, and then maybe one of the AHA folks will be there leading that workshop. That would be super exciting. Cannot wait. Thanks, Chad. This is really awesome.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. We'll be in touch in the next one. Cheers.
Yep. See you soon.
Bye.